In the heart of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, billionaire tech mogul Victor Langston's booming voice berated a young waitress over a trivial mistake until her single, piercing sentence silenced the room, exposing a truth that left everyone stunned and turned a routine dinner into a viral reckoning. Victor Langston, 54, sat at the corner table of Le Ciel, a Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking Central Park. As the founder of Langston Dynamics, a cybersecurity empire valued at $12 billion, he was no stranger to power. His tailored Brioni suit, Rolex Daytona, and commanding presence made that clear. Tonight, he was hosting a dinner for 3 investors, each poised to pour millions into his latest venture, a quantum computing startup. The stakes were high, and Victor's patience was thin. The waitress, Amara Cole, 27, approached with a tray of appetizers. She was new to Le Ciel, having started just 2 weeks prior, but her calm demeanor and quick smile had already earned her favor with the staff. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun, and her uniform was pristine despite the 10-hour shift. She set the plates down carefully, but as she placed Victor's foie gras in front of him, a small drizzle of sauce smeared the edge of the plate. Victor's eyes locked onto the imperfection. "What is this?" he snapped, his voice cutting through the restaurant's low hum. Heads turned. "You call the service? This plate looks like it was dragged through a gutter." Amara froze for a split second, then recovered. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll replace it immediately." "Replace it?" Victor's voice rose, dripping with condescension. "Do you have any idea who I am? I don't eat slop, and I don't pay $500 a plate for incompetence. Get me your manager." The investors at the table shifted uncomfortably. One, a woman in her 40s named Claire Hammond, glanced at Amara with sympathy, but said nothing. The other 2, older men in suits, looked down at their plates, avoiding the scene. The restaurant's ambience, soft jazz, clinking glasses, faltered as nearby diners whispered. Amara's face flushed, but she kept her voice steady. "I'll get the manager, sir, and I'll bring you a new plate right away." Victor leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You think a new plate fixes this? You're out of your depth, sweetheart. Maybe you should stick to flipping burgers." The insult landed like a slap. A few patrons gasped audibly. Amara's hands trembled slightly as she turned to fetch the manager, but she paused, her back still to Victor. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then, she turned around, looked him directly in the eyes, and said, "Mr. Langston, I know exactly who you are, and I know your company's servers crashed last month because you ignored my father's warnings about your outdated security protocols." The restaurant went silent. Forks stopped midair. Waitstaff froze in their tracks. Victor's face paled, his mouth half open. The investors exchanged stunned glances. Claire leaned forward, her eyes wide. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Amara stood tall, her voice clear but measured. "My father, David Cole, was your lead engineer for 5 years. He warned you about the vulnerabilities in your system, but you fired him for overstepping. Last month's breach cost you $200 million. Maybe you should have listened." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Victor's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the tablecloth. He was known for his ruthless efficiency, for crushing anyone who challenged him. But now, in front of Manhattan's elite, he was speechless. The diners around them were no longer pretending not to listen. Phones were out, discreetly recording. A man at a nearby table whispered to his companion, "Did she just say Langston Dynamics?" Claire, the investor, broke the silence. "Is this true, Victor? You had a breach last month?" Victor's eyes darted to her, then back to Amara. "This is nonsense," he stammered. "I don't know her father. She's making this up." Amara didn't flinch. "My father's name is David Cole. He worked at your Palo Alto office from 2015 to 2020. Check your records. Or better yet, check the X posts from last month when your clients were screaming about their data being exposed." The manager, a wiry man named Paul, arrived at the table, looking flustered. "What's going on here?" he asked, glancing between Amara and Victor. Victor pointed at Amara, his voice regaining its edge. "This girl is out of line. Fire her."
Now.
Paul hesitated, looking at Amara, who stood her ground. Sir, I'm sure we can resolve this calmly. Amara, can you explain? Amara repeated her statement, her voice unwavering. I apologized for the plate, but Mr. Langston insulted me and questioned my competence. I only mentioned my father because he's the reason I know about Langston Dynamics' failures. Paul's eyes widened. He knew Amara was sharp. She'd aced her training and handled high-pressure shifts with ease. But this was something else. He turned to Victor. Mr. Langston, I'm sorry for any inconvenience. We'll comp your meal, and… I don't want a free meal, Victor snapped. I want her gone. She's lying, and she's embarrassing me in front of my guests. Claire interjected, her tone sharp. Victor, she's not the one embarrassing you. If what she's saying is true, you've got bigger problems than a smudged plate. The other investors nodded, their expressions shifting from discomfort to curiosity. The older man, Richard, spoke up. I read about the breach. It was all over Bloomberg. You said it was a minor issue. Was it not? Victor's face reddened. This isn't the place to discuss business. She's a waitress, not a tech expert. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But the damage was done. The restaurant was abuzz. A woman at a nearby table, a tech journalist named Sarah Klein, was already posting on X. Billionaire Victor Langston just got called out by a waitress at Lucille for a $200 million data breach. She says her father warned him. This is wild. Hashtag Langston Dynamics, hashtag Lucille. The post gained 500 likes in minutes. Amara, sensing the moment, stepped back. I'll get you a new plate, Mr. Langston, she said, her voice calm but laced with steel. She walked to the kitchen, leaving Victor to face his investors alone. Paul followed her, whispering, Amara, what was that? Are you okay? I'm fine, she said. He didn't need to humiliate me. And what I said was true. My father worked for him. He was scapegoated for Langston's mistakes. Paul rubbed his temples. This is going to be a PR nightmare. But you handled it like a pro. Just stay in the back for now, okay? Amara nodded, but as she returned to the kitchen, her phone buzzed. Her roommate had texted. You're trending on X. People are calling you a hero. Amara glanced at the app. Sarah's post had exploded, now with thousands of shares. Comments ranged from "This waitress is iconic" to "Langston Dynamics needs to answer for this." The hashtag Lucille Showdown was climbing. Back at the table, Victor was scrambling. Look, this is being blown out of proportion, he told his investors. The breach was handled. Our stock barely dipped. This girl is just trying to make a scene. Claire wasn't convinced. Victor, you didn't mention a $200 million loss in our last meeting. If her father was a lead engineer and you ignored him, that's a problem. We need transparency. Richard nodded. I'm pulling my commitment until I see the full report on that breach. This doesn't sit right. The third investor, a quiet man named Alan, stood. I'm done for tonight. Victor, you need to get your house in order. He left, followed by Richard. Claire stayed but crossed her arms, her expression cold. Victor's dinner was unraveling. The restaurant, now a stage for his humiliation, buzzed with whispers and camera clicks. He signaled for the check, but Paul informed him it was comped. Don't bother, Victor muttered, tossing a wad of cash on the table and storming out. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. CNN ran a segment. Billionaire berates waitress, gets schooled on his own company's failures. The New York Times published an op-ed questioning Langston Dynamics leadership. On X, hashtag Lucille Showdown trended globally, with users digging into the company's breach. A whistleblower account posted documents allegedly from David Cole, detailing his warnings to Victor about the security flaws. The stock market took notice. Langston Dynamics dropped 4% by noon. Amara, meanwhile, became an unlikely hero. Her LinkedIn profile, which mentioned her part-time job at Lucille while she pursued a master's in computer science, was flooded with messages. Tech firms offered her internships. Activists praised her for standing up to power. A GoFundMe started by a patron at Lucille raised $50,000 for her education. Victor issued a statement via his PR team, calling the incident a misunderstanding and denying any negligence in the breach. But the damage was done. Two investors pulled out of his quantum computing venture, costing him $30 million in funding. The board of Langston Dynamics called an emergency meeting to discuss his leadership. Amara returned to Lucille the next day, despite Paul's suggestion to take time off. "I need the job," she said simply. But when she arrived, patrons applauded. A regular left her a $500 tip with a note. "Keep speaking truth." She didn't mention the incident to co-workers, but her quiet confidence was unmistakable. Victor, holed up in his penthouse, watched the news cycles spin out of control. He'd underestimated Amara, assuming she was just a waitress. He hadn't counted on her knowing his company's darkest secret, or having the courage to say it out loud. The fallout continued for weeks. Langston Dynamics faced a class action lawsuit from clients affected by the breach. Amara's father, David, was invited to speak on a tech podcast, where he detailed his time at the company. Amara, meanwhile, accepted an internship at a rival firm, her story inspiring thousands to call out workplace injustices. One sentence had changed everything, and the world was still listening.